jumping into our next segment here on the show, a contract negotiation that has been going on this offseason that I don't think a lot of people have brought up, or I at least haven't really talked about or focused on this season, is AJ Terrell and his contract negotiations going on with the Atlanta Falcons. Terrell is entering that coveted fifth-year option for his rookie deal, or I guess coveted by the Falcons, not so much by AJ Terrell to get to that point, but of his rookie deal in 2024, that'll be his fifth-year option deal, and Atlanta obviously picked it up last offseason, so it is there if they do end up using it, or at least if they don't offer him a new contract. He'll play out the year on that fifth-year option, and what's the word on how this has been moving on? Because, again, we haven't seen too many updates at all on what this could look like or when this could be done. So, one update that I did see was from the Athletics' Josh Kendall. He reported that Atlanta want to sign AJ Terrell to a long-term deal before the negotiations get tense, in their words and Josh Kendall's words. So, he expects it to get done soon, probably before training camp. But if we look at AJ Terrell and what he has been for the Atlanta Falcons so far through his tenure there. If we look at AJ Terrell, I'm going to get to that year in just a second, but he was drafted 16th overall, and he has played in 61 games of all the total games he could have played in the NFL. He's only missed at most 3 games in each season that he has missed games, so that's very encouraging. He's not a player that you really have to worry about injuries or anything like that. He's pretty reliable from that standpoint, so I really like seeing that through 4 seasons in the NFL. And if you look at this year, he was drafted in 2020, an okay year. You don't expect too much from a rookie defensive back, but then in his sophomore year, he earned All-Pro honors. During that, he earned All-Pro honors after this year, technically, after the season concluded. So he recorded 81 tackles, 16 passes defended, and 3 interceptions just in that year. And that was really the moment where fans, the team, really knew that they had something in AJ Terrell, because the first year, it was hit or miss. There was some good, there was certainly some bad, but after he makes, an all-pro team and things like that, you're really starting to push in a way where AJ Terrell is seen as a guy that you could really invest into on the defensive side of the ball. I've been very critical of the Falcons on that side of the ball, more so their pass rush, because their secondary with Terrell, with Jesse Bates, I think is at least solid with those 2 guys. So he's obviously been a big part of that over these last few years. But since that All-Pro year in 2021, he has failed to secure an interception since that point. He finished 2022 on a bit of a decline. He ranked 62 in his position after that year, so a big dip in performance after this 2021 year, but he rebounded a little bit in 2023, was ranked a bit higher in the cornerback rankings, but also no interception last year as well. So after you see all that, after that breakdown of AJ Terrell, kind of a mini summary of what he has been in the NFL, I still think he's in a good spot to get that extension. Now, when we're talking about money, there's a lot of comparing. There's a lot of, with any contract negotiation, there's a lot of market value things that come into play. Right now, the highest paid cornerback in the NFL is Jair Alexander. He's making $21 million per year. He's leading the way for all corners. No one's broken that threshold just yet. But I don't think AJ Terrell's going to get that money. I'm just stating it for the fact that Jair Alexander is up there among, I want to say Denzel Ward is another one that's right up there. He might be second or third, but regardless of that, what's really important to look at here is the other defensive backs that were also drafted in 2020 in the NFL draft, like AJ Terrell was. If you look at those guys, you have Chicago's Jalen Johnson. He was franchise tagged this year, and he got paid very nicely this offseason. So that's one guy. Then L'Jarius Sneed, who was also tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs. He was traded to the Tennessee Titans, and now he got a massive contract extension that the Chiefs weren't able to pay, so the Tennessee Titans were, and he got a massive bag for that. Then also you look at the Dallas Cowboys' Trayvon Diggs. He also got a massive extension, I want to say last offseason, So those are three guys already right there that were also drafted in 2020. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Sneed, were drafted ahead of AJ Terrell, but I'd have to double check that. But just off of my memory, I don't think they were. So all three of those guys already got paid, and they're all making either 19 or 20 million dollars per year on their contract extension. So one would think AJ Terrell looks at this, and in my opinion, he's not too far off from some of these guys. I would probably take Jalen over him, L'Jarius Sneed over him. It's close with Trayvon Diggs. I might take AJ Terrell over Trayvon Diggs, honestly. But regardless of that, there's not this big discrepancy in terms of talent and ability to play. I think they're all pretty similar to each other, so AJ Terrell could look at that, and obviously he's going to back himself and think, well, if they're making this much money, and we were all drafted in the same class, I should probably be making 19 or 20 if these guys are also making that, and he obviously believes he's the best out of the bunch. So that's one thing that the Falcons and AJ Terrell have to really negotiate and iron out, where they could find a compromise in his true value with the Falcons or potentially elsewhere if these negotiations don't figure themselves out. There's still the option of franchise tagging him. The franchise tag right now for defensive backs is set at $19.4 million, so that is right there with these contract extensions that these other corners got. So it might not be such a bad thing for Terrell to get tagged in comparison to other situations where you get the franchise tag and it's not up to par or really close to what your value is. If you're getting paid $19 million for that franchise tag in 2025, where they could use it on Terrell, it's still a decent thing for Terrell to make that money, play out that franchise tag year, and then if the negotiations don't go well, then you can move on, and you haven't really been underpaid until that point with that fifth-year option, because it is right there with some of the salaries that these other guys are getting in 2020. So obviously, maybe if the Falcons don't value him that high, it could be something that they don't want to do or want to get to that point. So again, it's almost flipped now with the Falcons and Terrell, because you usually see the player trying to get this deal done to try and avoid the franchise tag. But if Terrell gets it, it doesn't really hurt him too much financially because that is guaranteed for the franchise tag. So he'll get that guaranteed $19 million, and it's flipped because now the Falcons want to try to avoid that rather than wanting to do that like other situations. So that's another curious point that is brought up in this. But without a franchise tag, if the Falcons think that's too expensive for them, they don't want to do that, AJ Terrell would be a free agent next offseason. So I think he would really lead that cornerback class of free agents if he were to hit it for some reason. I think a lot of teams would like to get AJ Terrell on their team to be their number one. If you look at teams, I've talked about them before, like the Patriots, like the Cardinals, I'm sure the Commanders as well. All those guys are going to be big. All those teams are going to be massive players in the market next year because they still have a lot of cap space this year, and it's only going to grow next year. So those guys are going to be willing to spend. If you have a guy as talented as AJ Terrell, only 26 years old, I'm sure one of those teams would love to have him on their team. So right now, I think it's more so the Falcons that want to get this done sooner rather than later with AJ Terrell. So that is something to keep in mind. And also, going back to that point of me being critical of this defense, AJ Terrell is one of the shining spots of this defense. One of the players I will not criticize because I do think he is a good player. So with that being the case and them not really addressing the defensive side of the ball too much in free agency or in the draft, I don't see a way where the Falcons can be okay with losing AJ Terrell in any sort of circumstance. I feel like they have to get this deal done, especially with new coaching coming in. You don't want to have a part of your team that's really lacking, or you don't want to lose a player right away, really before you start getting into your tenure and starting to get into your ebbs and flow of this team and really figuring out who works for you and who doesn't work for you. And also with Raheem Morris, just on that same point, being a defensive coach, I think he would find value in AJ Terrell and trying to iron out these negotiations. I think that serves in the Falcons' favor and in A.J. Terrell's favor to have a defensive head coach that understands how valuable that position is for a guy that's really in his prime at this day and age. I really like A.J. Terrell and his durability, really mostly only missing at most 3 games in any of the seasons that he has played. And if I were to give an estimation of how much he could get, I think I would probably say 18 to 17 million for AJ Terrell from me if I was doing these contract negotiations. I think that's enough where it's close to those other guys, and of course you could do some salary cap gymnastics and work out signing bonuses, base salaries, and just roster bonuses at different points in time that could elevate this a little bit more. But just on the basis of that deal, I think around 18 million or 17 million, if it works out better for the Falcons, would be something that I think both parties could be happy with. I don't see AJ Terrell really valuing himself at 20 up until this point, but who knows? I could be wrong. He could see himself as that guy, but if I were the Falcons, I would be offering around that range and not think it's too expensive for AJ Terrell. I think he's done enough for them, and in comparison to those other guys that got paid in terms of the market, I think it works out for them to pay him around that much. I don't really see him leaving. I don't see how they could just let him walk out the door. But I'm anticipating this getting done probably, if not before training camp, early on in the stage of training camp, because I haven't heard that he has been holding out, so I don't think he will. But you don't want this to carry over any longer. So AJ Terrell, I'm saying he's staying, but if you guys think otherwise, let me know in the chat box or in the comment section of this video. With that being the case now, we have 2 more segments to talk about on today's show. One of them, still on the defensive side of the ball, Malik Hooker talks about the discipline that they're anticipating this year on the defensive side of the ball with Mike Zimmer and the differences between Mike Zimmer and Dan Quinn, who is now the head coach of the Commanders. And also, on the topic of differences, Josh Jacobs talks about the biggest differences he has already noticed between the Las Vegas Raiders and him joining the Green Bay Packers. Those are coming up very soon. We'll be right back after this break.